Because we are,
grossly behind.
because we're time challenged, I am going to suggest, and this is only a suggestion, and I would like your feedback. I'm going to suggest that we start with the compensation study because when we have a guest here to do that presentation, if that is okay with the board. If not, please speak now. Is that okay, everyone?
So moved. Question?
We're going to start with the compensation study as opposed to studying communication protocol, and maybe we can do that tomorrow. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Perfect. All right.
While he's getting the PowerPoint up, can I just ask for a point of clarity? Would we then take a break and then move on? Does the board agree that we would then take a break and then move into the electronic devices?
Yes.
Or do you want to revisit any of the morning topics?
No.
Can we just do the morning tomorrow morning, Dr. Watson?
Can we do what tomorrow morning?
Add this morning to tomorrow morning.
The what part?
Move
The
it.
whole, everything that should have gone before.
This
the
morning.
presentation stuff.
Without mess up
Can we
tomorrow.
move that?
So that would be the communication, superintendent evaluation, and board training.
We could try to get some of that stuff in. I'll play with it.
Yeah.
just-
Okay.
Perfect.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ray.
Excited to kind of do this presentation. Certainly it's been something that's long awaited. When Dr. Watts came to the district, that was one of the things she was asking me about. When was the last time we did a compensation study? What were the results of the compensation study? We really haven't had a completed compensation study done in more than 10 years in the district. So that was one of her initiatives, was to make sure that we did that. And we actually are starting phase one. With mostly the majority of all of this is classified. You approved in the consent agenda the next step, which is going to be majority certified. We may have some classified in there, but the majority certified. All the certified will be done with the phase two. So I'm going to turn it over to our presenter, Allie Crumpler with Evergreen, and then I know you will have questions, but I'm going to turn it over to Allie right now.
Good afternoon.
So as Mr. Ray mentioned, my name is Allie Crumpler. I am a senior consultant with Evergreen Solutions and very excited to present the results of our classification and compensation study to you all today. Just to give you an overview of what we'll talk about today, so we'll talk about the study goals, so why do a classification and compensation study. We'll talk about the project phases, so what Evergreen has been doing behind the scenes this whole time. And then we'll talk about the subsequent recommendations that Evergreen is making to the district as a result of our analysis. So as I'm sure you're all aware, your most valuable asset and your greatest resource are your employees. So we want to make sure that the district has a system in place that helps you recruit and retain your top tier talent. So our first goal is to review your current classification and compensation system to ensure an appropriate alignment of positions with your internal hierarchy, making sure that positions are slotted appropriately based on the roles and responsibilities of each position. Please keep in mind that, as Mr. Ray mentioned, this is phase one of our study, so this included your classified, support, and non-certified administrative staff. Phase two will address the other certified employees within the district. Once we completed your internal equity review, we did move on to an external market comparison. So we surveyed peer organizations to make sure that the district is maintaining market competitiveness. And then as a result of those two factors, we were able to provide the district with recommendations, including an updated compensation and classification system that will assist the district in recruitment and retention of quality employees. For this study specifically, we did our project kickoff back in December of last year. And at that time, we requested quite a bit of data from your district's HR leadership team. So we requested the employee database for all of the employees that were included in those 4 plans of the study. We requested the salary schedules, so the pay ranges, the pay grades for each position that is included within the study, the job descriptions for each of those positions, the organizational charts for all departments within the district, any personnel policies and procedures related to classification and compensation. And then since this study did include a benefits analysis, we also requested your benefits package information as well. So once we receive all of that data from your HR team, we are able to move into our project phases and really kick off our project. And so these are the phases that Evergreen goes through as we complete your analysis. So we start with the assessment of current conditions, and we move into employee outreach. We also ask employees to complete a job assessment tool, which we'll go over in a bit. We complete your market survey, and then produce our subsequent recommendations. All right, so once we got that data, we were able to do your assessment of current conditions, or your AOCC. And AOCC really allows us to get a better understanding of the current system that's in place within the district. It allows us to review any strengths and weaknesses of the current system, and really provides us a baseline for recommendations moving forward. So keeping in mind that this information is based on what we received at the beginning of our study, so in January of 2024, there were 4 plans that were included within the study. Those 4 plans are classified hourly, your school nutrition managers, your professional support staff, and your non-certified administrators. So all combined, these 4 plans support approximately 2,000 employees. The first thing that we noticed, just looking at the structure of your pay plans, is that you do have varying range spreads. So range spread is the distance from your minimum starting salary to your maximum earning salary. So really the earning potential for your employee. So you do have varying range spreads within your plans and across your pay grades. And those range spreads vary between 62 to 74%. So best practice within HR is range spreads between 50 to 70%. So the district is already in a great place in terms of their range spreads. And you guys are already offering a great earning potential for your employees with those wide range spreads. We also noticed inconsistent step progressions amongst your plans. So a step progression is the distance from one step to the next as employees progress through their pay ranges. And some of those were inconsistent. So for example, maybe an employee going from step 1 to step 2, it may be a 2% increase for them, but step 2 to step 3, it may only be a 1% increase. So those were some of the inconsistencies that we noticed. In addition, with our analysis, we also looked at where employees are concentrated in their pay plans, as opposed to where a model would anticipate that they would be based on their tenure in their current classification or their current position. This is done on a 30-year career trajectory. So an employee that has been in their current classification for 15 years, the model would anticipate that they would be somewhere close to the midpoint of their pay range. What we noticed is that approximately 64% of Savannah County Chatham Public School System's employees are earning more than 10% above where the model would anticipate they would be. Based on conversations with your district leadership team, we believe that this is because of the credit that the district provides to new employees for external experience. So if employees are able to bring in external experience on a 2-for-1 credit basis, so that allows them to move further into those pay plans when they're first hired, which is great. So if we took a look at your current pay plans, so these were the pay plans that were in place as of January of this year, so when our study first started. This is our classified hourly plan. So you can see that the district is utilizing grades 5 through 16 here. Again, you can see those varying range spreads. So again, the distance from your minimum starting salaries to your maximum earning salaries for each pay grade. And you can see that those decrease as you go through the pay plan. So varying earning potentials for employees in different pay grades. So you can also see that there are some varying midpoint progressions. So a midpoint progression is the distance from the midpoint of one pay grade to the midpoint of the next pay grade. So variations there just let us know that there are some differing earning potentials for employees as they move through these plans. This is your school nutrition manager's plan. So this is an annual plan based on 15-20 hours per year. So you can see here, again, varying range spreads, so varying earning potential for employees in these different pay grades. And we do have varying midpoint progressions. So you can see there's a 3% midpoint progression, so a 3% difference between the midpoint of pay grade FS02 and pay grade FS03, so a very small difference, 3% between those two midpoints. And then you have a 17% midpoint progression between FS03 and FS06. And you'll notice there that we jumped from 03 to 06. So this suggests to us that at some point the district may have had additional pay grades that are no longer being utilized. This is the district's professional support plan. So you have PS5 through PS3. So this one actually has standardized range threads, but some varying midpoint progressions here, and you'll notice that there is no employee currently in PS4. So just suggests to us that there may be some changes that the district can make to their current plans. This is the administrator plan that was in place in January of this year. So you'll notice again, consistent range threads within this plan, some varying midpoint progressions. But the one thing I did want to note here is that there is a very small, well, in comparison to the rest of the plan, a small midpoint progression between your A2 and your A1 pay grades within your administrative plan. So smaller difference between those two pay grades in comparison to the rest of your plan, and we'll make note of that later in our presentation. So once we completed your assessment of current conditions, we moved into our employee outreach portion of our study. So we were able to have a senior consultant come on site and do in-person focus groups with a cross-section of your employees as well as departments to get their feedback on the district's current compensation and classification plan. We also released an online anonymous outreach survey to all employees that we had an email address for that were included within this study. That survey window was open for approximately 2 weeks, and we received about 800 survey responses. So out of the 2,000 or so employees, receiving a response of 800, from what I've heard in terms of the district response rate, that's pretty good. So we were pretty happy with that. So we asked employees to share why they came to work for the district as well as why they remain working here. So you can see some of the top responses we received. Your employees enjoy the career growth opportunities that they're able to receive through working with the district. They enjoy the benefits package here. They enjoy the impact that they're able to make with students and with their local community. And then they enjoy the work schedule. So many employees shared that they came from working with the private sector where they often had to work nights and weekends. So having a schedule that's similar to that of their children was very important and a great benefit. We also asked employees to share their perceptions. And again, this outreach portion is your employees' perceptions, not necessarily that of Evergreen or your district leadership. But your employees felt that the district needs to do a few things to maintain market competitiveness and improve the recruitment and retention of employees. So those things would be increased compensation for employees or higher salaries across the board. They would like for the district to provide additional cost of living adjustments, and then also to adjust or increase pay ranges. So again, those minimum starting salaries and maximum earning salaries. So nothing too surprising there. I did want to point out that our outreach phase of the study did take place before the internal restructuring that the district completed. So any feedback that we received from employees was before that restructuring. We also asked employees to share their comments and concerns regarding the district's current classification and compensation system. Some employees shared that they feel that there are limited opportunities for career advancement within their current position. So once they're in their position, there's really nowhere for them to move up. Some employees share that not all job descriptions accurately reflect the roles and responsibilities of their particular position, especially as that changes over time. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the least positive and 10 being the most positive, satisfaction regarding compensation was a 4.8. So really pretty neutral, right in the middle. When we do similar surveys for other school districts, our satisfaction regarding compensation is generally around the 2 to 3 range. So actually more positive than what we typically see. Employees did share they felt that the district has a hard time retaining employees due to low compensation, especially in terms of your entry-level positions. And then again, in terms of your entry-level positions, many employees did mention having to work multiple jobs, especially to meet the high cost of living currently. We also asked employees to share their thoughts regarding the district's current benefits package. So again, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the least positive and 10 being the most positive, satisfaction regarding the current benefits package was a 6 out of 10, so not too bad. Strengths of the current system, employees shared that they enjoy the number of paid holidays that they receive here. They enjoy the retirement options that the district provides to them, and they enjoy the amount of sick and vacation leave. When asked about areas for improvement, employees would love to see additional personal days added, and then they would also like expanded dental coverage. So overall, we asked employees to share their top 3 priorities that they would like the district to address within this study. Those top 3 priorities would be competitive compensation with market peers, adjusting compensation to account for the high cost of living, and then adding more opportunities for advancement. We also asked employees to complete a job assessment tool, or a JAT. This is really our version of a desk audit. So we ask employees to share what they do or what they're asked to do every day when they come to work. So every employee that we had an email address received this assessment tool, and this assessment tool was open for employees for about 4 weeks. So for the completion rate, we received approximately 45.7% of employees completed the survey. And this represented about 53% of the positions that were included within this phase of the study. So our goal is typically 50% completion for this portion of our study, but after being open for 4 weeks, and receiving roughly half of the 2,000 employees that are included in the district, we felt like we had a good enough response to move forward. So using this information, we were able to analyze each position within the district, and we're looking at that internal hierarchy. So we're examining each position based on the roles, responsibilities, and risk involved with those positions, and making sure that they're slotted into those pay plans appropriately based on those factors. We also score each position based on 5 compensatory factors. Those factors are leadership, working conditions, complexity, decision-making authority, and relationships, or the extent to which they collaborate with others as part of their position. So again, this allows us to score each position within the district, making sure that they are aligned appropriately into those pay plans based on these factors. And so with our findings on the job assessment tool, so keeping in mind again that the input that we received from employees was completed before the restructuring within the division or the district internally, and then we analyzed this after the restructuring was complete. But based on that, the hierarchy of positions within the district appeared to be in alignment with no major changes needed. Additionally, FLSA statuses appeared to be appropriate. So there were some reclassification of titles recommended just for better clarity within the district. However, these did appear to be remedied during the reorganization that was completed by the district. Once we completed our job assessment tool, we did move into the market survey portion of our study. So you can see here that 21 market peers were selected for this analysis. These market peers represent organizations that may be close by, so they may be competitors for the district in terms of quality employees. They may be organizations that are similar in size, structure, or offerings to that of the district, or they may be ones that have been historically compared to the district in terms of compensation, such as Atlanta Public Schools. So when we're looking at the market survey, what this is really doing is helping us to get an overall market position for the district by comparing salary ranges of similar positions. So to do that, we did use 101 of the district's current positions or classifications, but we're matching based on the roles and responsibilities of the position and not the job title, since it may be called something different in another area. So for this analysis, we were able to collect over 1,000 data points for this analysis, and these results were finalized in May of this year. So looking at your current market position, so keeping in mind that this was finalized in May of this year, so the district's 23-24 school year, salary ranges were on average found to be approximately 4% below that of your market peers. So keep in mind that we're looking at salary ranges here. So your minimum earning salaries to maximum, or minimum starting salaries to maximum earning salaries, not individual employee salaries. So we're looking at your ranges here. So your ranges at the minimum are approximately 4% below that of your market peers. The middle of your salary ranges are approximately 5% above that of your market peers. And then your maximum end of your range, so that maximum earning salaries for your pay ranges, are approximately 11% above that of your market peers. The largest discrepancy that we found within our market study was with your administrator plan, specifically within that A1 range. So positions within that A1 pay grade, on average, were found to be approximately 34% below the minimum. So again, pay ranges, approximately 12.8% below the midpoint. And then your pay range for your A1 positions are approximately 2.6% above the maximum of that of your market peers. So you'll notice that you're gaining some ground as you go from the minimum starting salary to your maximum earning salary. Again, if you recall, I mentioned that the district has very wide range spreads, and this is why you're gaining that ground. So on average, your market peers' average range spread is about 48%. The district's current average range spread is close to 70%. So this is why you're gaining that ground going from the minimum to the maximum. So when comparing the updates that the district made to their pay plan for the 24-25 school year, the district did maintain a slight competitive advantage as the market currently exists. So looking at the market data that we collected for your peers for the 23-24 school year in comparison to the district's 24-25 school year pay plans, the district is above market, so approximately 0.8% ahead at the minimum. So again, your pay ranges, approximately 9.4% ahead at the midpoint, and approximately 15% ahead at the maximum. With comparing those positions on your A1 pay grade, they are still below market for your 24-25 school year. So approximately 29% below that of your market peers at the minimum, roughly 8% below at the midpoint, but you still gaining ground because of your wide range spreads, roughly 6.6% above at the maximum. So again, because of those wide range spreads, your employees do have more earning potential on average than that of your market peers. We also took a look at the benefits package that are offered by your market peers. So overall, your benefits package, that's offered by the district appears to offer many of the same options as that of your peer organizations. If you did want to consider areas for improvement based on peer offerings, it appeared that many areas are starting to offer cost-sharing dental insurance premiums, so sharing that cost with employees versus the employees paying all of that cost for dental insurance themselves. Many employers are starting to provide employer-paid long-term disability insurance, and then some organizations are offering slightly more annual leave than that of the district. In speaking with your district leadership, they did want to note that the employees within the district do receive an additional 10 days off per year unpaid. So they currently work 250 days per year where they used to work 260. So not something that we compared with other peers, but something to note that is part of the current benefits package as well. All right, so based on all of these factors, we wanted to provide some considerations for the new plans that we are proposing for the district. So we want to make sure that we're providing consistency within our range spreads and across all of your plans, as well as your grade progressions and your step progressions where appropriate. So we want to create some consistency in terms of earning potentials for your employees. We want to combine your school nutrition manager and professional support skills for ease of management, as well as to create consistency among these two groups. And then we want to maintain the number of steps that the district is currently implementing. That seems to be working for you all. But we do want to rework those step progressions to allow for more consistency and more equitable earning potential as employees move through those steps. So this is the plan that we are proposing for your classified hourly staff. So you can see that there are 12 pay grades, 26 steps in each pay grade, consistent range spreads of 73.5%. So every pay grade has the same range spread, consistent midpoint progressions of 7%. And then we do have a flat rate increase for each step progression. So a consistent flat rate between each step means higher percentage increases in lower steps. And this allows for higher increases for employees starting out in those lower level positions on this classified hourly plan. For your classified professional plan, we are proposing 11 pay grades with 26 steps. So again, consistent range spreads of 73.5%, consistent midpoint progressions of 7%, and then consistent step progressions within each step for those employees within these plans. For your administrative scale, we did maintain consistent range spreads. We kept your midpoint progressions as they currently work. They seem to be working for the district. But we did increase the bottom of your scale, so what was formerly A1, now proposed as 306. We did increase that midpoint progression to bring those positions up to the market level. So the purpose of these proposed plan is to help the district maintain a competitive stance for the 25-26 school year. So we want to keep in mind that the market conditions do change rapidly, and so while you are currently maintaining market competitiveness, we want to make sure that you're maintaining that in the future. We want to make sure that we're realigning classifications or positions that were found to be below market, and then we want to make sure that every employee has equitable earning potential. So the next part of our implementation would be to discuss how employees would move into these proposed plans. So now that we have these plans, how do we move employees into them? In talking with your district leadership, the current existing guidelines allow for a combination of external experience and classification tenure when moving employees into these plans. So Evergreen would suggest that the district continue with existing guidelines, but provide a longevity step increase for each employee. So you can see that the current plan estimated cost, so if the district did nothing else and continued with their plan as is, that would cost the district approximately $1.87 million. But if they implemented the proposed plan, the plan that's proposed by Evergreen, so updating for market competitiveness, increasing the earning potential or making equitable earning potential for all employees, and our other bullet point there, maintaining that market competitiveness. So that would cost the district roughly $5.36 million for a difference of roughly $3.49 million. Please keep in mind that this is base salary only, so this does not include any benefits or a cost of living adjustment that the district may choose to provide in addition to a longevity step.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you explain what a longevity step is? I don't think I understand that.
Yes, so a longevity step, so typically when there is a step plan in place, so employees receive an increase in step based on typically tenure. So as they complete a year of tenure with the district, they would increase a step. So for the current pay plan, there are 25 steps for your classified staff and then 26 steps for your administrative staff. Yeah.
Yeah, so it would just be those employees that are eligible. Eligible meaning they have worked at least 66% of the school year. Every employee that works at least 66% of the school year is eligible for a step for the next school year. So that's all. So that's the reason why the majority of employees get a step increase, and that's what a longevity step is.
So,
just a step increase from one school year to another.
So it's a promotion. I mean, it's a step promotion based on time in service
The prior
for that year.
Yes.
Okay.
With moving them through their current pay range, so.
Okay.
So final recommendations that Evergreen is providing to the district. So we would recommend that the district implement the 3 updated pay plans for employees, slot all classifications or positions into the plans based on the external and internal alignment, and transition employee salaries into these new plans. We would suggest that the district continue to conduct small-scale salary surveys as needed, especially for hard-to-fill or positions that have a lot of turnover. So employees are continually leaving, making sure that you're maintaining a check on those markets, make sure that they are appropriately placed within your pay plans, and make changes to those pay grade assignments as necessary. We would suggest that the district conduct a more thorough and comprehensive classification and compensation study. So what we're doing here, every 3 to 5 years, subject to budget constraints and as those market conditions are warranted. Again, your market can change rapidly, so just make sure that you're maintaining a check on that. And then we would always recommend that the district continually review and revise as appropriate existing pay practice guidelines. So this includes how they are determining the salaries of newly hired employees, how employees are progressing through their salaries within the pay plans, and then how they are determining pay increases for employees who have been promoted to new positions or classifications. Finally, we would recommend that the district review and revise all job descriptions to include updated classification information. This is part of our contract with the district, so Evergreen will be updating all job descriptions to include the new information we receive from employees as a result of their job assessment tool. But we would recommend that the district continue to review those job descriptions annually to make sure that you're maintaining a check on any roles and responsibilities that may have shifted over time. Questions?
Can I just follow up on one thing? I want to make sure everybody understood. On that longevity step or step, we've been hold harmless since COVID, and the state of Georgia has not done the evaluation as far as unsatisfactory evaluation having a step held. That is returning. So if somebody has an unsatisfactory evaluation, they may not get a step because of their performance. And that is coming back. So it's been a while because last time it happened was before COVID, but that is coming back with the state of Georgia. And so we will be returning to that because they will be requiring that information because we have to report, particularly on the certified side, when somebody does not get a satisfactory evaluation, and that is returning.
Okay. Mr. Katchmar?
Yeah, three quick questions. Thank you for your efforts on behalf of the district. Number one, when you were recommending the longevity step increase, did you or did you not address our 2-to-1 kind of experience rating? Did you make a recommendation on that?
Well, so the 2-to-1 is for new employees coming into the district.
Okay, so that wasn't part of what you looked at all?
No.
Okay, but new employees coming into the district are in a slot somewhere in here?
Right.
Okay, so we're not addressing that issue right now? Okay, second.
Yeah, so that would go into those pay practice guidelines for the district.
That catch-all, okay.
I was going to just follow up. Do you have any context for other districts and how they look at experience coming in? Are we in line or out of line?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty typical to give a 2-for-1 experience. Typically, there is a cap to the amount of external experience that you will give credit to, and that differs from district to district. Sometimes it's up to 15, up to 10, really just depends.
Is there anybody who's doing 1-to-1? Because I know that question often comes up.
Not that I can recall in this, demographic area, but we can definitely look for that and provide that information to you.
Second, do we have the drill down data? Like, I'd like to look at the job title market comparison. Do we have that available? Or was that given to the district is what I'm asking?
So we don't provide the raw data because of the Sherman antitrust laws, but we can provide some generalized information regarding your peers.
So if I sent an email to Mr. Ray and copied the superintendent asking how are certain positions, how is our pay on certain positions compared to your market study, you could answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I will do that. And then finally, we've had discussions before where as a board we've authorized the superintendent to deviate from our normal salary scales for hard to recruit positions, like nurse, for example, or other positions. What do other districts do in that regard? Do they lockstep, here's our salary scale no matter what? Or do they adopt separate salary scales or do ad hoc exceptions for hard to recruit positions?
Well, I think with providing a more generalized pay plan, as we're discussing here, you could discuss moving the pay grade for those hard-to-fill classifications, so increase the level, for those positions that are hard to fill. I think, again, maintaining that check on the market, what are other positions, or what is that position being paid in other districts around, just to make sure that you're maintaining competitiveness and then making adjustments to your pay grades as necessary.
And from your study of comparable markets, do most of those districts do that ad hoc, individualized change, or do they stick with their current scales?
Yeah, I think that, as necessary, you need to make those adjustments, but keeping in mind that, it's often a domino effect. So if you change one position, you need to look at how it falls within your pay plan and what other positions you're affecting as well.
Can I just clarify your question? Because I want to make sure I understand. When you say ad hoc, I interpret that to be like a one-off decision. I want to hire you, so I'm going to make a one-off decision. Your explanation of his question to me felt like you meant changing the scale in general.
Well, so I interpret it as if we're going to change the scale for nurses, increase their pay grade, you absolutely can make that one-off decision, but I would encourage you to keep in mind the other positions you may be affected.
My question was not person by person, it was job title.
Got
So
it.
we have, and I picked nurses, I honestly don't know where we are with them, so don't read anything into it. But there are certain positions where the last 6 years, we've had very difficult time recruiting for those job titles. And we've discussed, normally they're a, 206 or whatever it is, saying we're not finding people. So we need, for those job titles, we need to recruit
Got it.
differently, move them to a different scale, have their own scale, or move them up. And there will be repercussions for people who might perceive those positions to be comparable to other positions. But at the end of the day, if we need the work done, and our scale is recruiting and retaining those people, we either eliminate the positions and do without those job duties, or we change our hiring practices. So my question is ad hoc based on position, not person.
So can I ask from Mr. Ray, to what extent have we done that, and what have been the implications in circumstances in which we have?
Good question. We've done that a lot. I can tell you when the bus drivers came on, they were at grade 6. They moved them to grade 8 roughly a few months after, and we just moved them to grade 10. Just an example, bus monitors have moved. That moved a lot of those that are out there. We moved nurses. We moved campus police SROs, and the whole campus police, not just SROs, the captains, the corporals, all of those have moved. There have been other entities, data accountability, where we've had network engineers, or there's these different groups that we've moved based on the need of the market itself. And we've had that happen on there are many others I'm trying to think of.
So I guess that's my
Yeah,
thing. We've done it
what we need
many
to.
times,
What we
so
need
does
to
that
do.
indicate a flawed
Yeah, I mean,
overall
a school-
structure?
Speech language assistants are an example. They were grade 6 one time, and then we ended up having a communication with the speech language pathologist about how helpful they were. How did that dynamic happen? And we ended up moving the speech language pathologist assistants up. Well, in Evergreen determined they're still too low. So based on what they determined, we need to move them again, based on the fact that we did move them thinking we had done something, but when the study was done compared to our peers, they need to move even more.
Yeah.
So those are the type of things we do ongoing. We did an assessment, we thought we moved them enough, and then this is done, we didn't move them enough. So, but if we look at all the other positions that are in there, other than, again, there's A1, there's some other positions that aren't, but for the most part, I mean, all of our hourly are in where they need to be. But if we need to do a readjustment based on an individual's particular, I mean, we could have an audiologist, we could have all kind of different one-offs or individuals and groups that we need to go look at, and then we just have to go ahead, we just need to do that, and we'll do that.
Okay, I guess
And
my
we've done it in
point
the
was,
past.
we've done it a lot,
We've done it a lot.
which to me,
And
if
we
we
do
were
it
doing
annually.
things a lot, they're not ad hoc. They're not, it's a trend and a pattern, so I guess I'm trying to get to the root cause of why we're having to do it a lot.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to just your market conditions change rapidly, and you know, what is valued within your community may change over time. So just making sure that you're maintaining those checks and making changes as necessary.
And then the one group that is below market value, I don't know if anybody picked up on the fact that there is one, according to this study, our staff in this study are paid at market value, with the exception of one group of people, and that is our administrators. But we have not made that accommodation for them. We haven't done any movement for them, but we've done it for a whole lot of other folks.
That is correct. When the scale was created in 2005, 2006, as was mentioned by Ms. Crumpler, the fact that we should have these variations between the grades. Well, our variation, and you know, I go back and remembering, but we had A5 is there, and we had A4, and let's say there was 20% between, or 15% between A5 and A4. The next step is A3. A3 would be another 15%. But when you went from A3 to A2, it was 40%. And then when you went from A2 to A1, it was 10%. So at the top of end where we have A1, A2 of our administrators, the gap is not there. We've been battling for years in HR the fact that they're so close. We have these promotions, we have these issues with supervisors getting paid more than the subordinates that are coming in because of that 10% that was created in 2005 that Evergreen is trying to fix with this situation. The board approves, but that is an issue with the fact that those are just 10% apart when they need to be. I think the standard is 20%, or at least to be, or it needs to be what the others are in the comparison in that group. So that has been a hard challenge for us to get upper level administrators in this district, and has been because of that gap that is so small between A2 and A1.
Dr. Brinkman?
I think there's been a lot of hands. I don't know. I thought I saw some.
Go on.
You sure? I thought I saw some like white cloth down there earlier. So, I'll follow up Dr. Watts' comment, because we're always told that 208 gets paid too much, and of course I'm the kid that gets a packet and flips all the way to the back. Let me find the good stuff. And that was shocking that pay we're paying. So thank you to those 10 people that are in A1 getting paid way below market, coming in way below market. It was also very shocking that the classified hourly difference is so big, and we've chased it. Not nearly as much as I think we chased classified professional. Like, I think even before I was on the board, the district did a great job of figuring out we want to make sure teachers are compensated so that we can recruit, and I think we're still doing that well. And now we're playing catch up on hourly, and we've made some strides, but this, I mean, page 28 that's a huge difference to fix what they think are some of our slight issues. In their plan, classified professional is just $325,000.
Let me also explain that. If we go back to 2020, we would not have these variations we have today. What created some of this variation was the fact that we went to $15 an hour. Not because of the fact that $15 an hour is not a good goal, but because it pushed everybody. We eliminated grade 3 and grade 4. That means we had more employees put in grade 5, grade 6. So those spans were larger. If not, we would have had on the upper end large increases. And we needed to, at the same time, increase the salary of SROs, because we had the SRO starting salary issue. So as we worked on this particular plan, actually over a weekend, to go from the $15 an hour to do that, it did squeeze that. And so what you're seeing is the fact that grade 5 and grade 6 are now so close that when somebody gets promoted, you'll see somebody on the agenda that gets a 2-step increase. And you look at somebody else going from grade 7 to grade 8 and they only get a 1-step increase. They both receive a 10% increase. But because this other one is so close, well, how does that hurt us? But by the time they work here, longevity steps, 20 years, one person maxed out more because of where the scale is. Because they're a paraprofessional, they're going to max out on the scale faster than if they were, a nurse or some other that have those variations. But when they get promoted, they're actually moving. So there's a lot of problems that Dr. Watts keep telling me that you have to do the, what do you call it, sausage making? That we have
Acrobatics.
to do acrobatics
Acrobatics.
to try to make things work. We're always doing that. This would help us to not be able to have to go through all of that every time we have these changes and look at everything. The scale itself would accommodate the promotion. The scale itself would accommodate an employee moving from this role to that role.
And so, talking about sausage and some acrobatics, I like it. I have a sausage doing cartwheels in my head. If we were to go with this proposed plan, estimated cost, that means we're changing our scales, and then we're going to spend this much money, boom, because people are going to change, and their salaries are going to change, and this would be our cost this fiscal year?
Next year.
Next year.
This is for, right. So when
Okay.
we look at so the 1.8 is what we would do anyway. That's our
Yeah.
longevity step. We would do that. I mean, the board usually votes on the longevity step every year. The addition is that 3.49, which would be to make sure that we're doing these balances between, so that the employees that are getting promoted, or employees that are going from one step to another are equitable. I always give this example. I told Dr. Watts this and maybe told others. A couple of years ago, and we're getting to the certified, but I did get a call from a teacher. This was probably in 2019, I think it was 2019. I got a call from a teacher. Teacher was like, wait a minute, my pay went up. I want you to check this. The teacher was concerned that her pay went up. Well, it wasn't that there was a problem with her pay there. It's just that the prior year she got a lower increase, as she was describing. You will see that on the teacher side too. And so she was just calling to make sure. She didn't want to pay us any money back. So she wanted to make sure that this is right, and it was right. But that's what we're talking about. Shouldn't it be consistent? Shouldn't every year an employee kind of expect
That would
the
be
same
nice,
kind of
yes.
things? Would be nice.
So I want to be clear that our employees here, that if the board directs or guides me to fix this plan, it's not because we're not paying people
Correct.
fairly. It's not because, it's to fix a flawed schedule.
Yeah.
But I think people may hear it as, oh, they owe us,
Right.
we owe you more. We haven't been paying people what they're supposed to be paid. That in fact is not true, because we're actually paying people over the market.
Yeah.
The majority of your positions are above market rate at the minimum.
Right.
This is just keeping everything would look the same.
This is to
instead
fix the
of all-
flawed
yeah.
structure. So we would be paying to fix the structure, not paying to settle up with somebody because we
Correct.
didn't pay them
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Okay, Dr. Hoskins, Brown, and Ms. Hall. And Ms. Hall. Ms. Hall first? Okay.
We had a situation that we temporarily fixed of having a significant number of employees who had been here for 25 years and their steps ended. That was the highest they could go. I believe we adjusted it to 30 years, is that right?
No, I think we're the highest we're at is 25. What's that,
I think
26? 26.
non-certified administrators would have 26.
26. It's 26 now. So
Okay.
at one point in the district, we were 19, so we've been moving. But yes, we were at 19 at one point at the max. Now we're at 26 at the max.
Okay. We have people who have come out of school at 18 and begin working here, so at 25 years, they're far away from retirement eligibility. How do we best deal with that?
So we would never
Let
recommend.
me ask Mr. Ray, about how many people am I talking about? Because of course I just hear from them.
Well, I'm sorry, just can you repeat?
How many
Tapped out.
employees do we have who
Oh, that
have reached
maxed
the
out?
maximum of 25 years and cannot get higher steps?
I want to say at least 500, Dan, what do you,
Okay,
what do you thought
yeah.
about? But I would also add, that includes a lot of our certified staff that max out. It will be the next discussion, but we have certified staff that max out. Maybe on the classified side, maybe it's maybe 300 that are maxed out. I know you did that.
I'm
before.
asking for
Yeah.
all.
But
you
for
know.
all, so
How
it's
do
going to
we-
be maybe 500-600 that are maxed out at some point on the scale, whether it's a certified scale or classified scale. It's over about 600.
Yeah, so that goes back to the pay practice guidelines the district chooses to put in place. We would never recommend that the district implement what's called ghost steps, so, continuing to provide steps to employees that are not there. Really deciding how many steps that you want to provide for your pay ranges, keeping in mind that more steps mean less earning potential for those steps over time, right? So if you're keeping your range spread the same, but increasing the number of steps, employees are going to receive less from one step to the next. But deciding how many steps you want to have, and then deciding, once an employee reaches that maximum step, how you want to value that. So typically we see districts providing longevity bonuses at the end of the year, so they don't receive anything additional to their base salary, but they may receive a bonus check at the end of the year for maxing out that scale.
Okay, hold up right there. So you're saying, rather than give that person a step increase, there is a bonus involved each year at the end, and that should be enough to compensate, it won't be as much as a step would be, but it's a salute to your service, so we're not trying to leave you stranded at, if I'm 18 and I start, I'm 43 after 25 years, I have to go all the way to 65 for full retirement. That's a long stretch.
Yeah, and we do that now. We did it with, at the end of Dr. Levette's tenure, certainly Dr. Watts continued it and has emphasized that it will be continuing. So we're doing it again. That's usually something we do around the October time frame every year.
What is it we do?
The one time. We don't do the one time at the end of the year, as she was mentioning. We do the one time around September, October. End of September, October, we do the one
And
time.
that's each October?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that keeps some of our most experienced
Yes.
people with us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
My question is, one, on the 3.49 million, that is an annual expense next year and forward to sustain this proposed plan as our living plan. That's correct?
Well, go up every year.
But, yeah, 3.5 million plus.
It's,
Okay.
It's
And I
the
would
difference.
also say, what we don't know is, we don't know what other districts have done this school year. I mean, they made a reasonable comparison of what they might. We don't know what other school districts did necessarily. We also don't know what other school districts may do next year. So it may not be, the reality is it may not be that big a difference when you look at that midpoint. If we were to go do a survey 2 years from now, what that information is, we just don't know. But
Right.
it's an unknown to know what other districts around, what those same districts that we did around us, is kind of an unknown for us.
But, okay, well, that's,
And part of this difference is including in positions that are being updated for market competitiveness. So that would be more of a larger upfront cost, and then employees wouldn't receive that much of an increase in subsequent years because they've already been brought up to where the market states that they should be.
okay, I don't really know what that looks like in terms of your numbers. I understand the narrative that you presented that said this is where the market is, and with respect to the administrators and other groups, but I don't know what that looks like monetarily compared to this 3.5 million. Because you're making it sound like, Mr. Ray, you're making it sound like it could be less, but it seems like it would only be more.
I'm saying if we would look 2 years from now and did the same thing, what I'm saying is it could show that we were then behind. This could keep us ahead.
Market conditions change.
Market conditions change.
Okay, so it could be, this would keep us, this would make us on tempo with the market right now.
We're already.
Well, I mean, and
we
I'm sorry.
already are.
So maybe,
I'm sorry.
Alec, can you go back to the slide that has the 2023, 2024?
This simply fixes
When you did that one?
our
Smooths out our
structure.
That one. So
Right,
if you look
okay.
at 2023,
We're already
2024,
Right.
created.
this is what we know where we are compared to the actual peers.
Right.
Okay, so
Before we
it's-
move, before anything happened this year, before you did the COLA, that's where we were.
Okay, so that number, 3.5 million fixes the structural problem
Of each there.
Of the
Of the
scale.
plan.
of the scales and the additional, but I'm still looking for what that number is every year. What the annual cost is gonna be. It's 3.5 now.
Well, I
Right,
think
and
once
so
it's-
as we noticed that some of your positions are far below market, so especially this slide is pointing out positions within your A1 range. So Part of that 3.49 million is updating those pay ranges. So those employees may receive a larger increase to move into those new ranges that have been updated for market competitiveness. But for next year, if you're not making any additional changes to their pay ranges, then they would just receive their typical step increase. So they wouldn't be receiving as large of adjustments again for the following year.
So I guess the best way, and I think I'm articulated it this way, once we, if you approve this and we were to do this whole 5 million, and now we're talking about what is the calculation for the next year for everybody getting a longevity step. It averages 1.8, maybe it moves to 2, 1.9, 2. That would be the ongoing, yes, you still have, ongoing additional cost every year would be that 1.9 on top every year.
That's what I'm looking for.
1.9.
You've got a new normal.
What you're doing, you have a new normal.
Okay.
But it still would be that everybody gets step increase represents 1.8, maybe it's 1.9 next year. You know, by the time, so maybe 2 million by the time we get further down the road.
Understood. So it's got it. So it's 3.5, and then that same 3.5 plus potentially 2 million.
It becomes part of the cost of doing business.
Yeah, it becomes part of. I understand, but I still need to identify where it's coming from, at least in my head. Okay, so that's helpful. That was the easy question. The comparisons that you made for districts like ours. Do those districts have employee assistance programs, and what do EAPs normally cost?
So that was part of your benefits analysis, and I don't have that specific information, but that was included in the analysis that we sent over to your district leadership team, and that is part of the chapter that I can provide to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, then Dr. Howard Hall, and then Dr. Brinkman.
Can I, just what I'm saying about EAP. EAP, I think our district, I want to say it's around $70,000 to $80,000 internally for us to do. So it's not that's not a big benefit. It's not like some of the others. Total, it's about $70,000 a year.
Okay, but the nice, fancy, shiny EAP programs with leather seats, what do those cost?
I think, well, part of what we have is the state of Georgia has a separate EAP, as you know, and so some employees are going that direction. We haven't reached a point with our own EAP where we said that we need more services. Although I think we could go down that path, we need to do RFP, we could try to expand it out. But I would say the one thing that we took away from employees years ago that would be glad to put back is that long-term disability. The long-term disability is something we took away when we had the economic downturn in 2009 as a cost saving. And I think it was costing the district at the time maybe $120,000, just trying to give. It was some number that, because of the economic downturn, we took it away. So right now, all employees have to pay for their own long-term disability. And so I think if we were able to offer that, that would be a great security for somebody to know if anything happens to me, the district's I'm covered as far as something happening. Right now, I don't know the percentage. I don't think probably more than 30, maybe 40% of our employees have long-term disability at this time.
Can we run this thread? 'Cause this is where I want to talk about anyhow. Can we run,
Well, I was kind of continuing on benefits
Yeah.
anyway. So I know that these costs just talks about salaries and hourly wages and not benefits. So I would also like to see that number of if we as the board decided, yes, let's go ahead and move with this, what would the benefits costs be additional to? So that way we actually have a concrete number so we can make that decision.
The real number.
On the real number, and not just
Absolutely.
say, well, we're estimating about X, Y, Z.
And we can get that. I can tell you that when we had the economic downturn, we also cut EAP, and we brought it back. We brought it back primarily, I think, around 2013, 2014. So it was a good thing to bring it back so we can see the usage, and we can share that usage, kind of what we have internally. As far as that, we can get the number, because we've been asking, we can get you that number and add it, and you'll know what that cost is to add a long-term disability.
I would like to see it kind of broken out, being what we are currently providing our employees and those benefit costs, and then adding on that long-term benefit, as well as the dental, because not just in this, but also just talking to members of staff, they say that's one thing that's missing. And that's one thing that is costing them a lot more money out of pocket than it would be, even if they had to pay 80% of it, and the district paid 20% of it, it would still save them money out of pocket, and that's a huge benefit that a lot of people who are staff members they use their spouse's plan if their spouse's employer even has a plan. So it's just something that if we could offer it, I would like to see what all those numbers would be, so we really are able to talk about apples when we're talking about apples.
I fully agree that is something that we could encourage, and certainly we need to be, we will look at that as well. And I think that is an important benefit if we were able to supplement. We did have a self-insured plan, and then we went away from the self-insured plan as recommendations came that the vendors were, much better process, but certainly we can go back to the self-insured. When we're doing the self-insured, the employee didn't know we were paying the 20%, but we were paying the 20%. So what we would do every year is we would adjust the cost down as we started having more money in our fund. And so that's, something that we could go back and look at if that's probably something we need to do. So we'll look at it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Howard Hall, then Dr.
Yeah, I got like 2 more follow-ups.
It's all good.
When a certified employee obtains a degree in their level of expertise, they're compensated. However, our classified employees, especially those that are in leadership, if they go to college and they obtain a degree, they're not really being compensated. So what have we thought about how we can compensate them, especially if they are in a leadership position and they've gone to school and obtained a degree in that level of expertise?
Good question. Going back to 2016, if you look at the compensation workplace analysis, it has it in there that was one of our future goals. We didn't make it with, we made it to the 2-to-1. That was actually one of the last things that was in there that we did make it to. And so that is something we need to continue looking at, is to be able to do that, because I do agree. We do have that with some. We have that with our nurses, and we do have that with our school nutrition managers currently as well. So that is something we need to look at to be able to expand. I do agree, and it is in there. We need to continue doing what was in that plan.
And also, I was a very young teacher at 21, and when I maxed out, that is why I went back to college, to get more degrees, so I can be compensated, because I was stuck at that 25.
Okay. Dr. Brigham?
Would you happen, so when we did pay for disability insurance, were we paying like a 40%? Were we paying like, if we paid it and they got 40%, or they got 60, we were doing the 60? We weren't even making them do, we were pulling the whole, we were paying the full to get them to 60%. Do you remember what that was, like a paycheck, or no?
I don't. Like I said,
Okay. Yeah, but I would just love to know that number, because it's even better that we did the full 60%.
It's a lot. I do think the last time we looked, I think Deanna said it was very expensive to do it now. It was in we can go back and look, but it's certainly more expensive now than it was back then.
Of course.
But I do think the 60. If we do it, we'll do the 60. I don't think we do the 40.
Okay, because that's what a lot of people do, the 40, and then they're like, if you want the 60, you can pay your little extra.
Yeah.
So they at least get
That'd
something.
be better. If we at least do 40 as a foundation, and we find out then at least you're only paying for the other 20%.
Yeah.
And everybody has it. Just think
Yeah. Oh no, that's the big thing. We got to make it to where everybody has it, because so many people neglect that, and it doesn't take much.
Right.
And that's paying your mortgage or paying something for the rest of your time. So I would love those numbers. Thank you for having at least that you knew only 30% was. That was my next question. Like, how many people are in it now? And 30% is a sad number.
We'll get you those numbers. Get you the exact numbers.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
This is a little bit of a divergence from this.
Microphone.
Okay, this diverges a little bit from the detail of the compensation study, and I guess it's more a Dr. Watson, Mr. Ray question. But, and it kind of goes to Dr. Howard Hall's point of when you max out, say as a teacher, or even if I'm looking for, is there an opportunity, we have amazing teachers that may want to stay in the classroom, but they go into administration because that's how they can advance and compensation.
I do have plans for that, and
Okay, so-
ideas around that, but we just haven't gotten there yet.
Well, and so where I'm going with that is I would love for us to find a way to keep awesome teachers in the
Yes.
classroom doing awesome
Absolutely.
things and not feel limited by the ceiling
Yes.
because of their title.
Very
So-
passionate about that topic,
Okay,
yes.
so we're on that track.
Yes, and I will describe another one that teachers listening will know what this is, and I don't know if the board really recognizes, but sometime around 1996, the board approved a policy where the last step we had was 19, and we had a lot of employees. Back then, if you think about it, people stayed their whole career. They weren't really moving around. So the board changed it to having Chatham years at 25. In other words, if you came from outside, in order to get to step 25, you had to have 25 Chatham years. That evolved because we had to have certain other increases or whatever the case may be around the 2010. Now it's step 22. So you'll have employees that have 25 years experience, but they can only get paid step 22 unless they have 25 Chatham years. So one thing we want to change is that, because now we're more transient. We have employees that will come here 20 years, and so, they have 25 years, they should be paid at 25. So that's one thing that's going to happen with the certified side that we're going to be working with them is finding a way to eliminate that so that all of our employees are the same. No variation just because you're here 25 Chatham years. We don't see that as much as we used to. So I think when it was created in the 90s, it made sense. It doesn't make sense today to hold to that.
I do have one
Okay.
more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I don't know if this is what Mr. Catchmore was asking or not, but so if I want to know where we are on teachers and nurses and bus drivers, can we get that information as compared to where it falls with this study? I mean, with these.
Of the 101 classifications or
Yeah.
positions we took to market as benchmarks, we did provide that information back to the future.
Okay, because
Yes, we can.
I would, I
Yes.
need
We'll
I've got to educate
provide it to the
myself better
board.
on how all that.
Provide to the
fits.
board, and then the board,
Yeah.
then we can come back if you have questions about the detail that you saw.
Okay. And then this might be jumping the gun. Sorry, I said one, it's two. So with the next part of the study, are we going to wait for that and then come back and evaluate everything comprehensively? Or kind of where are we thinking this process will?
So I'm hoping to get some early guidance, because while this is a topic about compensation, what is always top of mind for me is the budget process. And as you all know, we cut the millage rate, fund balance, so I'm already needing to find about 8 million to cover those cuts. If we're going to do something like this, that's another 3 million I need to find somewhere. So I'm hoping to get some early signals so I know I can't wait till the end to figure out where I'm going to cut. The higher the price tag, the more we got to find, because there are no additional revenue sources. So it's choices and trade-offs. So I guess what I'm saying is the earlier signs I get, the more ready I can be at the end of the budget season. And I don't want to wait, because it's probably going to take them till January, December-ish
January
to do the teacher one.
Complete, yeah.
So I need, if there is a clear signal from the board to act on this, I want to start not acting to implement, but positioning myself to implement, should that be the decision.
And the increase in the cost in this one, so we're ahead in some, we're overall pretty good with the market. We're ahead in some places, behind in others. But is the increase in the cost because we're more behind on some areas than we are ahead on
Now,
others?
the increase in the cost is to fix the pay scale. We're actually, the variances.
Going from one to another is that somebody either gets promoted or somebody's moving along the step progression. Like I said, like I gave an example of a teacher contacting you concerned about why did we get such a big increase.
Yeah.
It's because of the variances. What we're trying to do is say if it was even, then you wouldn't have that.
But I'm glad you're saying that, because what I don't want our employees to hear, because when we first heard this, the default thinking was we're behind and we need to catch people up. That's actually not the case. There's only one employee group that we're behind on, and that's the administrators. The other employee groups we're actually paying at or above market. This is to fix the flawed structure.
Mr. Kachmar, and then Mr. Johnson.
I want to talk about cell phones too, though, so.
We're still on track. Got 5 minutes.
So real quick, this is not all employees, right?
Right, so this is
half.
your classified hourly or professional support and your non-certified.
Okay,
administrator.
so I anticipate we're going to study the other half, and we're going to be told, here's what the cost is to make adjustments there to the extent we have to.
If we need to, yes.
Right, so to answer your question, I'm generally supportive of hyper-competitive pay scales, but 3.8 is not the number. Or it's 3.8 for this
That's a
group
piece of it, right?
this year, and it's X next year, but it's 3.8 every year moving forward,
Right.
plus any COLA we do on it. So
Yes.
I'd like a ballpark on that number too, but I'm generally supportive of this. To your earlier comments about people commenting about 208 getting paid too much, if I remember that data, the 3.8, about 290,000 of it was for the administrators. So the dollar figure is maybe
very small.
7%
Right.
of that total 3.8. The vast majority of people impacted are not administrators. So that argument, the counter argument that administrators get paid too much,
It's not true.
there's two. One, it's not that much money, and two, it's not true.
Right.
So I'd like to know the total number. What's our plan for the other 50%?
Mr. Johnson.
Okay, I'll make this really quick so we can get onto the cell phones. Kind of like what Mr. Cashmore said, in theory and principle, I'm behind this. Just needed more information about how much the benefits are going to cost by doing this that we currently have, and if we can add on to long-term as well as dental. Just knowing that information, I think us as a board, we can make better financial decisions as well as better decisions for those people who want to recruit into our system, into the district as well as keep.
I'll be super quick.
All right,
Because I
Dr.
think,
Freeman.
because I think like 3 or 4 times we've been confused about what we're trying to fix. And the super has done a good job of reminding us that we're doing great with this section of employees on market. We are trying to make sure that the house is built with a staircase where every step is 8 inches. Because right now, we in that house downtown where one step is 4 and the next is 10, and then you're on a 2-step in,
Yes.
and you're tripping.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and that's why people, so I was just trying to get us somewhere where we can understand, we are just trying to make every step in the house the same height. So that each year when you go up a step, you know the percent you're gonna go up. Versus one year I get a big raise, the next year I'm like, well, I got a raise, but now it's tinier than last year. What? So I hope, is that analogy correct?
And I'm using that.
You're stealing that one, Crumpler?
I love it.
Steal it, Crumpler. I'm done. I said something smart.
Okay, Ms. Grabowski.
Sorry, I do have one more question. With the cost of living, do most districts, like, is the cost of living supposed to be built into the step? Or is that something districts usually set annually? That's kind of a policy thing too.
Yeah, so we would suggest that the district provide cost of living adjustments and then adjust your plans accordingly based on that.
Okay.
So it's separate, those are separate
They're
things the
separate.
board always considers. So
Got
longevity
it.
steps have a certain cost, and the board agreed in actually 2016 that we would always do a longevity step regardless of what we do with a COLA. There might have been a reason why we kind of made sure it was separate, because employees have to be able to move, otherwise you have compression, because the board did pay freezes. We've done 5 freezes since 2008. And it caused a huge problem with morale in the district because you have people coming in and people getting paid the same and all of that. We fixed all of that. So longevity steps are tied to more than just pay. It's really somebody moving along that continuum. And I guess I can use the analogy Dr. Brigman said, not getting to step 2 and staying there while somebody else comes up to step 2 and standing beside them that weren't there the year before.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of what we do with the step versus the COLA.
Quick comment on the COLA.
Yes.
The other discussion we've had on COLA, though, is should we, in our policy, do an automatic 3.5% adjustment yearly and then have to decide not to versus debate what that should be every year, which is what we do. And there's two very different things.
Very good.
Want that for a budget hearing, a budget meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. This is fantastic. Okay, so we're going to take a 10-minute break. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk about cell phones.
There we go.
Motion to adjourn.
So I have the opportunity task of positioning you for an important discussion, one that I don't think you need a lot of context to engage in. But I'd like to start very quickly by sharing a story that I believe many of you will find very familiar, one that captures both the perceptions and, quite frankly, the realities of what may be happening in classrooms across the country and in our district. So imagine a typical high school classroom buzzing with the energy of teenagers. Each student has a cell phone in their pocket, an incredible tool that connects them to a vast world of information and resources. But as the lesson begins, the teacher notices something. While some students are using their cell phones to look up information, engage with the lesson, and even collaborate with their peers, others seem to be distracted. The teacher circulates and notices that some students are periodically checking social media, some of them are texting, they're on games. The teacher faces a dilemma: how to harness the potential of these devices to enhance learning while preventing them from being one source of distraction. Okay, so this is both the challenge and opportunity that you have to engage in some discussions, and as we explore our district's electronic device, and I say electronic device, cell phone policy and practice, would be important for you to consider how we can strike the right balance between enabling innovation, and you'll see some of that if you've not already referenced in your presentation, enhance learning opportunities to really develop the critical and interpersonal skills needed for workforce development, a strategic priority, might I add, and ensuring that our classrooms remain focused on learning and students are actively engaged in the learning experience. So very quickly, in the spirit of brevity, I'll move very quickly through our slides so that you have time to engage in your discussion this afternoon. You've seen the trends. We've been seeing them both nationally and locally across the country. Schools are adopting a wide range of approaches to managing cell phone use. You'll notice that some districts across the country, here locally and in the state of Georgia, have various versions, and we'll highlight a few of those various ways that districts are managing cell phone use. Also, just want to bring your attention to some data points, some research surveys, and just want to highlight a few things from them so that you don't spend a great deal of time taking a look at it. 72% of high school teachers, according to Pew Research, reported that cell phone distraction is a major issue in their classrooms. Parents have expressed some mixed opinions, as you might imagine, with advocating for some stricter controls, but also bringing some awareness around sort of the safety and learning aspect, the benefits of having those devices. No surprise here. Interestingly, students themselves recognize the benefits and the drawbacks, but with many of them acknowledging that cell phones are valuable for learning, right? And so I think the complexity of this really underscores the issue and the nuanced approach to how we consider what our practices and policies look like. I do want to, again, share with you some of those common policy and practice models that we've seen both across the country, here in Georgia. So I'll let you take a look at a few of those where we have from cell phones being restricted for all students, regardless of grade level, all the way to cell phone restrictions being left to schools to decide how to implement. I do want to share in our district, and just want to bring your attention back to the existing regulation, JCDAF, where students may be permitted to use their personal devices for instructional purposes and to access district-provided network and internet, but students must follow all directions given by school personnel. Also want to bring your attention to highlight that school staff may control, limit, or deny a student's use of personal electronic devices unless otherwise directed by a supervisor or by IEP or 504 plan. And I also want to bring your attention to this part of the regulation that allows schools to, again, address students who are not in compliance or who fail to follow those directions. And then also what those progressive consequences might look like. I do want to share just some existing practices in our district. You'll notice that this is just a sampling of what's happening across middle schools and high schools in our district, from cell phone storages, where a middle school may be requiring students to submit their cell phones at the beginning of the day, and they are returned to students at the end of the day. In high schools, you'll notice that similar practices are being implemented. Now, there are some opportunities and some flexibilities with the high school schedule. In this particular case, this school returns those cell phones at the end of the period. Those students have an opportunity to utilize or have access to those cell phones during transition and during lunch. I also want to highlight that we are indeed a one-to-one district, and students have access to devices. So you'll see our students engaged in their learning experience, utilizing those devices, opportunities for collaboration, and opportunities for our teachers and our students to leverage the technology resources and the platforms for learning. So what are our next steps? Well, part of our next steps will include having our discussion this afternoon, but also as we think about the future, it's important for us to consider how we leverage the potential of these devices to enhance learning. As I shared with you, there are innovative models such as blended learning. Certainly won't go into details. I'm going to certainly provide you that time to have some conversations around that. Mobile learning integration. Some of those things we're leveraging now through the technology that we have available with other curriculum resources. Mobile-based artificial intelligence for language learning. Again, you saw earlier some collaborative project-based learning. You saw a picture of that happening in one of our schools, and that's quite frankly happening in a lot of our schools. But I'll end with this, and that is more exploration is needed. We certainly will engage in that conversation this afternoon, but it's important for us to hear the voices of all of our stakeholders. So there'll be some opportunities for us to engage our principals, our teachers, to hear their voice and their thoughts in a more formal capacity. We certainly want to engage our students. We might anticipate what they may share. We want to, again, position them to provide some feedback around what that might look like in terms of our existing practices, but also what that might look like in the future as well. And of course, we want to engage our parents. The great thing is that we have some existing practices and some models happening in our district now. So that gives us a really good opportunity to engage principals in what's happening, engage our teachers to see what's happening on the ground. And as we hear those voices, as we take a look at those existing models, we'll be able to learn and leverage that to make some decisions. So I'll close and yield to Board President for the remainder of the discussion.
Thank you very much. I know that we all have something to
I'm gonna
say
text
about
you
this.
My question. You have to text your question, Jake.
You have to text.
So can we do it by video?
So is it like a Mentimeter?
Okay, okay, Ms. Hall?
Okay, Mr. Butler, have you had a chance yet to have conversations with other school districts across the country who have tried implementation and gotten kind of a feel for the do's and don'ts, what's been successful and what they've had to kind of go back and restudy, revisit?
Yeah, so we've not had an opportunity to have in-depth discussions. I think many of the school districts are beginning to implement. We see that. So a lot of what we want to do is take a look at how that looks this first year. But certainly those districts have made the decision in many cases to pilot with middle schools and high schools first, and really a few of their middle schools and a few of their high schools. And so we'll be taking a look at how that has been implemented for them this first year.
Dr. Hoskins-Brown?
Thank you for this presentation, and I'm really, really looking forward to what we see in the pilots. I think the faculty senate tell us they
Yes.
were just
That's
cell phones that just
they're
were
done
with them.
They were
Okay.
done.
But not all, it wasn't 100%.
It was
was not.
90, it was like 90%.
Dang, with 100% in here. So I look forward to the
Yeah,
pilot
yeah,
to
yeah.
see what we get. What I remember is when we talked about, first there was no cell phones, and we revised that policy, and there was a little dissension on the board about what that was going to look like. I got so many phone calls about my son's cell phone from school, you know, about yielding the cell phone and all of that. And I remember his friends, and I have heard about the cell phone issue in a way that did not describe it as being really constructive. I know it's collaborative, and there are ways for that to happen, but I also have seen students, collegiate and high school, use cell phones in a way that, I say this politely, is not original, non-original generation of information. So I am completely open to what our teachers and what our leadership are going to recommend in terms of how to use cell phones as a device or not to have them in the schools. And I'm under no illusion that there's going to be, that everyone's going to be happy with the decision. If we keep the cell phones, you know, there are some parents who say, you know what, I don't want my child going anywhere without a phone. They must have their phone, and I'm their parent, you must allow them to have the phone. There are other parents who say it's a distraction, it fosters bullying, it fosters cheating, inappropriate material gets disseminated, and all those different things. So I don't think we're going to have a solution to those challenges, but I really look forward to the honest assessments that are going to come from our district participants in the pilots, and those who have the lived experience of pre-cell phone in Savannah Chatham and post-cell phone in Savannah Chatham. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Howard Hall?
Whatever decision we decide upon, I would like to know the standpoint of a teacher regarding who is responsible to ensure that these students are not using the cell phones, because we know that teachers are already inundated with so many other things. They're bombarded with a lot of them are burnt out. So will the responsibility be on the teacher to ensure that the students are not using the cell phone? I guess it depends on what model we use, the pilot program, because in some cases they bring these phones to school and then they submit them in, they turn them in to an administrator, whoever, if they choose to. I mean, if you mandate it, has a guarantee that they're going to not try to hide it? Or, you know, so what responsibility would this be for the teacher? Because teachers have so many other things to be concerned with, and we don't want to add another task for the teacher per se. So that was my concern.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And of course, there are several models, and we've seen locally the use of pouches where students are turning those cell phones in at the beginning of the day. The responsibility lies on the student to keep up with that phone, but they don't have access to that device throughout the day. But to your point, that's one model that we've seen being implemented across schools.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, so those of us who did go to the teacher senate meeting, yeah, it wasn't 100%, you're all right, Ms. Borowski, but it was 98 plus, I think. I also know that there is a school that has been here for a while that does have a pretty strict cell phone policy. It's one of our charter schools, Savannah Classical. They have it where you can't have a cell phone in sight while during school hours. So maybe talking to them with how they do their enforcement, use and control of that, get the ins and outs on that, that would possibly be able to help as well. I'm one of those parents that when my kid is old enough to actually take his phone to school, which is a couple of years from now, it will be, I have no problem with him not using it in class, because these kids today, they're addicted to YouTube, social media. They're out there and they're on these devices all the time. I do believe that in the long run, we're going to see that it's done more harm than good. However, I also know that they need to be able to intelligently embrace technology, and there are ways to do it without being on the cell phone, with getting the same integration as a cell phone, because tablets and cell phones, they use the same model, they're on the same platforms. Therefore, you can get the same exact learning experience by using a tablet versus a cell phone, whether it's an Android tablet and an Android phone versus iPad and an iPhone. You're going to get the same experience. If they're going to look the same, they're going to act the same, and you'll be able to access the same and get the same apps. So anyone who says that, in my opinion, anybody who says, well, you have to have a phone to be able to do certain things, you don't. You can do everything on a tablet. You can, and it's more controlled, especially since we are one-to-one. We can give them a district device, so we know they're not going to certain sites and certain apps that they should not be accessing.
Okay. Dr. Feliciano. I'm sorry.
Dr. Feliciano.
Dr. Freeman.
Come together.
I'm so sorry.
I would like his computer whiz. Thank you. I can't thank the district enough. Over the years, every time I have something that I want to bring up, I'm like, oh, look at him. They are living in my head rent free, knowing what I'm about to bring. Like I was so happy to see this, because it has become a bigger thing. And I think I'm happy that we aren't rushing. I feel like, way to go, Liberty County, but I don't know if they really spent the time to look at everything. So I applaud us for the piloting. I applaud us for allowing the schools that have decided to use our policy right now that allows them to limit cell phone use to do that, and pretty much have already instituted lots of pilots with different ways that they're being collected, different ways they're being used. Yeah, it's a teacher's responsibility. It's a teacher's responsibility every class period when they have it. Like, I was half-heartedly making a joke with the Reverend. I deal with it with my doctoral students, and I was like, I know you deal with it with your parishioners, because they'll be the one, you're preaching and they're on their phone. Yeah. I see them in my church, and I'm just like, are you? I know you aren't pulling up your Bible on that. Because I see it looks like you're checking your Amazon order.
But at least they're in church.
I mean, yes, they're getting a little bit. So the things I would really like us to make sure is, are we in the pilot looking at how many incidences we have, write-ups, things like that, like the change in behavior, and how we can, as a district, try to put a number on that. That's a hard, and it's a moving target every year anyhow, and it's not going to be apples to apples, but it'll at least be some, at some point. It is interesting that the law right now has IEPs and 504s. If it's written in there, they could have it, so I don't know how that's going to look in a plan moving forward. So if we can get, I'm sure y'all have already been talking about what does that look like, and then if we do decide to do this as a district, really, again, going back, I love Faculty Senate, going back to Faculty Senate and seeing, from the pilots, I don't think we have any pouch schools right now, but can we do this without adding a huge expense to the district? I think it's working really well at STEM. I haven't heard any negatives from all of my son's friends that, they turn it in the morning to the homeroom teacher and they get it back. And if he remembers, he turns it on, and then he figures out when the 6th bus is coming to pick him up on the app. I mean, he can get that done. But from what I'm getting from the teachers, it's just so, they just walk to the next class. They're not pulling out their phone in between transitions. They're not able to text, hey, meet up with me outside of the school because we're going to do this afterwards. They're not able to videotape every single thing that happens when two students decide to have an altercation. So I really am thankful that y'all are working towards this. Please, I know you're going to bring in some students. I know you do. You're going to talk to your student council, but bring in those teachers, bring in some parents. I know there's going to be the people that want to know and text Bobby and Susie every class period and get a text back that are going to have some growing pains there. But for us to make a better learning environment, we've got to take away as many distractions, and this has just become the biggest distraction, I think, for pretty much every human that has one. Even if the distraction is work, when you maybe shouldn't be working. Some people here.
Mr. Smith.
You've been working too much.
Thank you, Mr. Butler, for the presentation. This question was posed to Mr. Butler, but I would like to also ask Dr. Watts, have you been able to do any research on this from different districts to see the use, the pros and cons thus far?
I'll say that Mr. Butler characterized it. I think many districts that are pursuing this are on the very early stages of it, so I've not seen a successful model because I don't think there's been one yet implemented. So that's my answer.
Gotcha.
I think all the ones that are doing it, they're like, this is the year that they're launching into it.
Gotcha. Makes sense. I would also like to add to piggyback off of Dr. Brinkman's words. I think that as we decrease in the cell phones in the campuses, I think we should make sure that we increase in safety surveillance because when we think about students having fights, we're able to find out who did what by seeing the cameras from phones. We're able to find out, we're able to hear different things, and find out different tips as it relates to what's happening in our community and in our schools through phones. So the piggyback to the opposite side is I will hope that we will continue to make sure that camera surveillance and safety precautions are put in place so that teachers, students, as well as families can feel safe while phones are absent. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Mr. Kachmar.
Are we doing our survey before implementing pilots? Is that my understanding? Or are we going to listen to stakeholders and learn and leverage and then come up with a pilot and say, okay, here's what we're doing, or are we doing all three at the same time?
Yeah, so we currently don't have a pilot. So these are existing practices. So that's something that we can consider in terms of designing a pilot. In terms of the timeline, when the survey happens or when the pilot implementation, I think those things might happen simultaneously. But there certainly will be some conversations and some data that we collect prior to designing a pilot. I think that will be important to do.
Okay, so we're going to gather more information, design a pilot based on existing practices and the information, and then is the superintendent going to bring, here are the pilots we're going to do and discuss it with the board first, or are you just going to implement something? Or is that to be determined?
I think it would be important for the board to know what pilots are happening. But I also say we have pilots happening because we have schools that are already doing some of these practices. And so we need to learn from those schools before we set out to do an additional thing.
So I will say this, I am open-minded on this issue. I have preconceived biases based on having 2 kids go through our school system and graduate, and then a third who's still in the system. I see the benefits of cell phones, I see the detriments of cell phones, and not just based on my kids, but on their friends, on discussions I've had with students. There's pros and cons. I have a problem doing a blanket punishment or a blanket rule to deal with a smaller percentage of the population that we're impacting that is problematic. But that said, I think part of the reason we're talking about this is it's not 0.2% that are a problem, but I don't know if it's 89% or if it's 42%. And I've talked to teachers about this, and some say, I don't know why it's a big deal. The second time there's a problem, they're getting
Take the phone.
I'm taking the phone, they're going to the principal, and I just deal with it that way. And then other teachers say, I've tried over and over, and it's just, it can't work. I'm not blaming teachers. What I'm saying is I question whether, in our initial policy, whether our progressive discipline was too mild. There's a reason we have less than, I don't know what the number is, but we ban cigarettes or marijuana, and if you're caught once, there's a stringent penalty for those things. I question whether our progressive discipline on this issue is too mild. First time, you're told don't do it again, and you lose it for that day. And these are just questions I have, like, is our progressive discipline structure right? Because we do have an existing policy that says if you are told no cell phones and you violate it, you get punished. So are we not punishing people? Are the teachers just overwhelmed? I can't punish everybody in my class, or I'm going to lose 70% of my learning time. So it's just more information that I want. My initial reaction, though, is setting a blanket rule is easy. We think this is a significant problem, so we're going to ban them entirely, and let's move on. So I appreciate the slides which said, here are 15 different approaches we can take. We can say no cell phones entirely. We can say no cell phones in classrooms and locker rooms and bathrooms where problems can occur. But I've also heard from parents and kids who are like, I take care of my grandmother after work, and sometimes I need to know whether I go to there or I go here, or there's communications during the day. So there's pros and cons is what I'm saying. My initial reaction is I'm uncomfortable doing a blanket rule to punish the sins of a few. But if the information we get back is it's not a few, it's the vast majority, and then I'll look at that data and reconsider. But I'm glad we're doing the study and getting input, and thank you for bringing this topic to the forefront.
Ms. Hall.
I'd like us to look at this issue in a broader manner than discipline. Perhaps some of our school psychologists could speak to us. What I'm reading, what my research is saying, is that we are doing this whole generation of children such a disservice. We are lowering their level of self-confidence by, exponential amounts, because these cell phones have become their mirror of whether or not they are competent, whether or not they are liked, whether or not they are valued, all kinds of psychological problems that are coming up. So if we could hear from, we don't need to hire somebody from the outside, but if we could hear from some of our school psychologists on what they feel the effect of, and you know what, and they say it's not just for kids, it's adults too, that the amount of time we spend, that the screen time, that it's really affecting our relationships, a whole epidemic of loneliness, all kinds of things that we may not see till further down the line. So I'd like us to look at it from that viewpoint too, not just, punishment because you didn't do what I said.
Dr. Hoskins-Brown.
Ms. Grabowski is technically due up next. I just want to comment on something that was said. If you have one child, all this works if the child complies. If you have one child that doesn't turn the phone over and doesn't comply, and blows up the classroom for 20 minutes, you've lost instructional time. So it's not the problem with the kids that will say, sure, I'll put it in the drawer. It's the kids that says, no, I'll put it in my pocket. I promise I'm not gonna take it out. Or no, I don't have to give you my phone. Or I need my phone for these purposes. So it's that one disruptor that makes it a policy challenge, not the children that comply.
Ms. Grabowski.
So a few things. So we do, I'm glad the comment was made, I think Dr. Watts said that we have schools that are already doing this. I've seen a change in where my kids go to school between last year and this year. And it sounds like STEM has done that too. So I'm glad to see that some schools are already, recognizing that we can do that within our existing policy. So we'll love to hear the feedback from those schools that have already started down this path. I would agree wholeheartedly with Ms. Hall that I think part of this is looking holistically at not just from a disciplinary standpoint, but just the anxiety that comes from phones. We can't address a lot of the issues that come from social media and platforms per se, because what they do once they leave the school is outside of our control. But what we can do is explore, is it worth easing the anxiety of, oh, I don't have my phone until I get out of this class and I can't wait till the break to see if she will reply to my whatever. However, I also agree with Mr. Hatchmore, there are pros and cons, and there are things that I am very anxious to hear from our teachers and our students about. So the band teacher, where my kids go to school, he wants them to have a metronome. Best one is an app on their phone. And I'm sorry, but it's really hard to put a laptop on your music stand. So there are practicalities. I'm not saying there's not another solution, but we just need to be open-minded as we explore this. Because I have my preconceived notions of where I think I am, but I also am not the one that's in the classroom, although I am a mom to 2 teenagers. So that brings that in there too. As far as the disruptors, yes, I hear you, but I think that's also something, like if you have a disruptor over a cell phone or a disruptor over something else, like disruptors are an issue, whatever the medium might be. So I don't know that making a policy to the disruptors is also the answer as well, if that makes sense. I hear what you're saying.
And the disruptors will still be a disruptor, even with the policy. They're not going to say, oh, the school board passed a policy, let me hand my phone over freely.
Yeah.
They're still going to be a disruptor.
But the disruptor has the right to have the phone because the policy allows it. And the disruptor may be covering up that they're not prepared for class. They're not on grade level. They didn't have clean clothes that morning. But what they can point out is, you can't take this phone from me.
But our policy says, yes, they can if the school says
Our policy already says they can.
And I just want
Our policy in red says they can now.
I think the faculty senate is telling us that asking for the phone politely and saying, please comply with the policy is not working.
But I think what we've seen is we've already seen changes from last year's Senate meeting to what's happening in the schools today.
Okay.
So that's what I'm very anxious to hear.
I'm just saying, schools they can change individual school or individual teacher can change today.
Can change today. But I do want to get back to what Ms. Hull was saying and understanding because we know from studies that attention spans have gotten so much shorter, largely because of cell phones. So understanding the psychological impacts, we can't control the whole time, but we do have the opportunity to influence when they're in the classroom.
So, is anyone else?
I mean,
Go
ahead. You can pontificate, and then I'll pontificate again.
Okay, so I spoke to a couple of teachers. This is what the teachers told me. Unless you have a blanket policy, because they said, in my school, it's up to the teacher. I have one teacher who is a lot looser about cell phones in their class. Then that same student comes to my class, and I don't allow cell phones, and I spend half of that class time arguing with students about cell phones because Miss So-and-so said I could have them. So, you know, and I don't have the answer, but that's part one. Part two, I think cell phones are also a safety issue, and I would like for Chief Enoch to speak to us about the safety issue of cell phones.
Thank you very much. I think there's potential benefits and drawbacks in the policy. I think you hit all the talking points. From a safety standpoint, they've been a distraction for us. They disturb schools. A lot of cyberbullying going on. It's been getting better with some of the schools now managing keeping cell phones out of kids' hands. But here are some things that we respond to. A lot of coordination of meeting in the bathrooms and doing things, or letting someone into school. Hey, I just showed up. I need you to go to the door and let me in. A lot of that happens. That's how we get a lot of intruders that come in. Managing that piece is very difficult. Airdropping pictures, pornography has been a big challenge for us. It's like whack-a-mole. Oftentimes, although it's important to have the narrative when something happens, and it benefits us sometimes, but also a lot of fights are created and planned and staged, and just so that they can take pictures of it and put it on social media. There's a lot of things that occur in schools that cell phones have just been used as an instrument to help facilitate disruptions in the learning environment. I support some controls. I do on the communication side. I have kids myself. I understand the need for emergency communications. I think in the classroom they become a distraction, it can be, and they also can be a benefit if it's managed properly. So it's I think the pros for having some tight constraints or controls, restrictions, probably outweigh the benefits of allowing them just to be a free fall. Everybody just have your cell phone to do what you want to do. I can tell you it's been very challenging for us. Most the cyberbullying is very challenging again. Planned events makes it very difficult for us. The times those cell phones are not in their hands, it is a safer time for us. We do a pretty good job at communicating with parents and delivering messaging to kids when we need to talk to them. I can see the need that when they're walking home and parents need to know where they are or reach out to them during breaks and things of that nature. There may be some individuals that you may have to make some exceptions with. But I think overall I would be leaning on some type of controls from a safety standpoint. And I say that based on the data and the incidents that we've been managing. Coming out, remember COVID, all the fights that we had. That was very difficult. That narrative was, they had sites set up for fights, and at the games. We just saw that at the Capri. There were at least 3 fights that were recorded. And it was staged. It was like, we're going to fight right here, we're going to record it, and we're going to put it on the internet. As Mr. Cashmore said, isn't everybody? No. But it's a way of spreading anxiety within the community, and it impacts everybody. Sometimes it only takes a few to impact everybody, right? And so we got to think about that. But I think it happens enough that we need to have some type. We have restrictions already that we might need to tighten it down a little bit more. Thank you.
Dr. Ringman.
Yeah. There are pros and cons, definitely, but I really don't see it as a policy that would punish. I didn't punish the children that use their phones appropriately. I don't see it as a punishment there. I see it as allowing our students the privilege of an environment that has one less distraction. I mean, how many of us would probably relish somewhere telling us we had to go somewhere and we were going to be in a room and we couldn't have any technology and we would just have to engage fully and not have that, ooh, my work might have emailed me during this meeting today. We've all checked, I'm sure. And for our teachers, yes, there are those rules already, but when you have to do that 10 times every class period, it every time changes your thought process. Where was I? Now I'm back to this. And that's just if the kid actually listens and turns the phone over right away. So I think in the teacher retention side of our other duty, it gives them the privilege of teaching somewhere where that's a set, defined policy from the second a student walks into the building. Their cell phone's going to be gone. They're going to get it at the end of the day. And then that's one less bit of classroom management that's going to be in every day. Yes, are there going to still be the students that have it hidden and pull it out? Yeah, but that's not going to be every class because there's going to be few and far between that are trying to pull that off. Yeah, it's not going to make them all go away. We know kids are still vaping in bathrooms and we've outlawed those, but it's a lot less. So please keep going. I would love to know how many, you don't need to know, you don't got to tell me now because I know we're going to have more talks on this. How many of our schools right now are doing a full, you turn it in at the beginning of the day, you get it back at the end of the day? I would just like to know that list just so if I engage with teachers from those schools, I can ask questions. And if I engage with teachers from other schools, be like, so what do you think about what they're doing at X, Y, or Z? Have you heard that the teachers over there are doing, because the street talks, and sometimes that's, if we listen, some of the best advice. So, yeah, thanks.
Dr. Hoskins-Brown, then Mr. Katchmark.
I think it's just important, whatever we do, that we are prepared to support the teachers. So if you have a teacher who's having a problem with phones in the classroom, it's a classroom management issue. And it may be a classroom management issue because they don't have the skills developed yet, or it could be a classroom management issue because they have the skills and they have an exceptional assemblage in their classroom that they have to manage. So, whatever the policy is, I think we need to look forward all the way through enforcement to what we're going to see in terms of discipline, or those students who don't want to comply and get sent down to the office, and the referrals and all the things that are going to come down from how we enforce a lenient or a stringent policy. And it sounds like some people have experiences with classrooms where it works really well, and others have observations of classrooms where it's really gone awry and been a disruption. I'm supportive of a policy. I can go either way. I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm supportive of a policy that allows phones to be present and used in a constructive way. But if we do that, we need to have supports in place for teachers while they try to continue to navigate having phones in the classroom and other places. I'm also prepared to back up the leadership that says, you know what, the amount of time that it's going to take to enforce and to enforce the policy that is lenient is not worth the time that it takes that we could be putting into other things. So whatever it is that we choose to do, it doesn't just stop at the phone gets to be present. It's all of the things that have to happen during the rest of the school day because that instrument is there.
And I'll add, you spoke about the school. We'll also have to have the change management process for the community. Because if we change the policy, you all will hear from parents, and we will have to decide how we respond to that. But there will be division amongst parents. Some will support it and some will not. So your emails will be leveraged accordingly.
Mr. Katchmark, then I've got a comment. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask Dr. Bringman, are you advocating for a ban from first bell to last bell or during instructional time?
No, right now, I like how it's going in STEM. They turn it in at homeroom, they get it last period, they turn it on.
The entire day?
They turn it on when they exit the building.
Okay.
Yeah, that's working very well there, and my son and his friends have had no problems with it, and he has said, at first he
That's middle school.
It is,
Yeah, is any high school doing that?
What?
Is any high school? I can't see that flying at high school. Is there a high school doing that?
Johnson.
So Johnson's existing practices allow students to have their phones returned at the end of the class period.
Class period, but not end of the day.
Right.
Correct.
So they can use it during lunch.
They can use it during lunch, yes,
Bell to
and
bell.
during transition.
Saved by the bell.
That makes sense.
I know, I would hope K-8 has a very stringent number two.
So I'm gonna give you a personal story. So with the Savannah Children's Choir, when we travel, we do not allow cell phones. And I remember the first time we instituted that policy, and parents were in an uproar. We traveled, kids came back, and the parents were shocked by what their kids told them. Their kids were able to tell them more about the trip. And the children told them that they didn't miss their cell phones. But one of the reasons we restricted cell phones is, why do you go to England if you're going to be looking through a cell phone the whole time? What the kids were able to do, they actually, in fact, I remember a parent meeting, and one of the parents was complaining. She said, well, you've got a 2-hour layover in Atlanta. What's my kid going to do? And another parent says, I don't know, have a conversation with their friends. So, that's just an example of, I really look forward to hearing the feedback from some of the pilots, but I think you will probably hear more kids talking like David's kid. Because one of the other things that I don't know if you guys have been reading about this, there is a thing with cell phones now, what's it called? It's dopamine addiction. There is an it's a problem. And these kids are addicted to the dopamine of cell phones.
Not just kids.
Not just kids. No, yeah. So we have a whole society that is addicted. And one of the challenge. No, here's the other challenge I think we're going to have. I think we have some of our teachers that we're going to have to wean off cell phones. It's
Five of us were on the phone when Mr. Butler was talking. It's like I had to put my phone. I was like, he is talking about cell phone.
Right.
On my cell phone. I was like, I have to put this down. We were doing it ourselves.
Roger, I was going to say, if Chief asked us to all turn in our cell phones tomorrow morning until tomorrow afternoon, what would he have habits?
I would.
So moved.
Even before the meeting started, I grabbed Tamika's cell phone in the other room, and then I said, "Is this your cell phone?" He said, "No, it's not my cell phone." I said, "I just grabbed somebody's cell phone." Then Tamika was running around and panicking. Where's my cell phone? That's why I got up again. So I just know as a teacher, that's a lot of a responsibility. It's easier. When my children were at Savannah High, I saw it in action. You take that cell phone, it was just high school. It's a little different from middle school, different from elementary school. So we really need a good talented program at the high school level. But that's where the crux of the problem is. I think it occurs in high school.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
I mean, from when teachers come and talk to me about the whole cell phone issue, one is that yes, you do have teachers that are more loose on it and let the kids have it in class versus others that say, I don't want to see a cell phone in my class. The biggest complaint on both sides of it when it comes to teachers is that because the district doesn't have a definite, hard policy, it's hard to enforce anything when it comes to cell phones.
Right.
So because of that, that's why there's a lot of ambiguity. That's why there's issues with cell phones in a class, because some teachers don't want it, some are fine with it. And the ones that are fine with it are the ones that typically don't have the quote-unquote the issues with it. But they said that if there was a policy for it, they would obviously enforce the policy, because they don't care one way or the other, at least from the teachers that I'm hearing from. And going back to the whole conversation about addiction and dopamine, I mean, I know I've seen it, I know other people have seen it, that even social media companies are getting sued because of the known addiction when it comes to these devices. And anyone who says that, well, with the cell phone you can do this, that, or the other. Everything you can do on a cell phone, you can do on a tablet. Except, you can even make a phone call, you can send text messages and everything else. And we've already supplied those tablets. So personally, I support 100% to have it, whether it's locked up or if it's just out of sight in your book bag. I don't care how it is, but just not out and being used. I'm fine with that.
All right, Ms. Grabowski and Dr. Reed.
Yeah, I want to bring,
Yes,
yeah, Sean brought up a great point. I want to keep talking about it.
Okay. Ms. Grabowski.
We got to fill the 9 minutes in 3:30.
So wrong.
So Ms. Hall sent around an article a couple months ago, I think from the New York Times, that was described 3 different approaches that different districts took. So if you didn't read that, I would encourage you to go back and read it, because I found it very interesting. And personally, I really liked, I think it was the 3rd one that was profiled. It was a district that took a similar approach to sounds like what we're doing, where they had the students, like the people that are in the building really had the conversations and came forward. So I'm very grateful to see that that's the approach we're going to take. I'm curious to hear if we have a timeline that we have mapped out yet, because I do think that, that's something that a lot of people are going to be asking about. And then to the point of parent communication, I do think that if we are looking at a policy that's going to restrict cell phones during the day, that we need to think proactively about what that communication policy is, and hopefully not something that becomes incumbent upon where we got to communicate through the teachers.
I fully agree that it would probably be pretty rough for 4 years with high schoolers. But if we start it next year, and it's rough for 4 years with high schoolers, but it's not rough with our middle schoolers, and it's not rough with our K-5, they will grow up and become high schoolers that have been in the system for X number of years with a bell-to-bell or whatever we choose, non-cell phone use, and then it's not going to be as rough. I don't remember when we went to the book bags. I don't remember when we went to uniforms, but I'm sure people were losing their mind then too, and so were the students. And it took some time, but it became the norm. So if we decide now to make some new norm that we think will make a better learning environment and a better teaching environment, I'm willing to support the district and teachers, either elected or not, in trying to create that environment.
Dr. Howard Hall.
And we have to also consider AirPods.
Oh, they got rid of those too.
AirPods, and also, the Beats. You got big hair like me, you can put it on, nobody can see it. Your phone can be in your purse, you can be sitting listening to music, watches.
Yeah.
And your watch.
Glasses.
Your
So
Apple
STEM's
Watch.
done that too, but they only have wired. They only have wired.
They got the glasses.
That's right.
That's how STEM's doing it. The no AirPods, no big things, only wired.
David, we should go back to outdoor plumbing too.
I mean, it works when I'm camping.
Go back to outdoor plumbing.
You're talking to the guy that listens to records, man. You ain't talking to the wrong tree.
In the year uniforms, everything was 2005, my son was a freshman, 2005, 6, when they started the uniforms.
Anyone else?
Who's gonna give a benediction?
This has been a great discussion. I'm really looking forward to what you guys bring to us. Thank you. Everyone knows this has been like a hot thing for me since that faculty senate meeting. By the way, we will be having another meeting with the faculty senate when?
Tuesday.
No, no, where the board is invited.
Yes, sir. We're looking to take the recommendation of the board from last year where we would flip-flop the meeting where the board engages with the faculty to the Superintendent Professional Senate. We do have a Senate meeting on Tuesday, our first meeting in the year with them to establish the cadence. And we look to establish the meeting for the board to engage with them in September.
Okay.
Do we have that date?
Not yet.
What school will have the meetings this year?
So we are looking at the locations. The Islands High School is a Teacher of the Year location, and the Oglethorpe Charter is Ms. Molden location. So neither of those are optimal from a size standpoint, and we are looking at potentially doing it again at Jenkins High School, which seemed to be centrally located and plenty of space. So the location is to be determined as well. We will be at Jenkins with the Senate for the first meeting, and we'll determine those other details for the remainder of the year and share that.
So the board meeting, the first one where board members are invited is not next Tuesday?
No, it would be targeted in September.
Okay, Stacy's waving her hand.
Stacy's choosing.
So the internal meeting of the professional senate with the superintendent is next Tuesday.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Do we have the date for the September?
Not yet, that'll be finalized after that meeting and communicated to the board. We also.
Does everyone know it's an evening meeting in September?
So the September Board of Education meeting is an evening meeting, that is correct. The informal meeting starts at 3 p.m. and the regular is slated to start at 6.
And I understand it's a very heavy agenda.
Including the 10.
We have a few presentations per the cadence of our accountability plan. We also have a quarterly East Plus update and quarterly change order update.
Motion to table those.
All right, everyone, we will see you tomorrow morning. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh, speaking of board meetings, the GSBA conference is scheduled the same day as our December.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Why don't they do that?
Dr. Howard Hall, thank you for raising that. That actually was a slide that we had in the originally intended presentation with the board this morning about professional development and landing on topics for a whole board governance meeting later this year. We did notice that the GSBA conference, in fact, the pre-conference workshops are on December the 11th this year. So anyone who's getting credits for that, that is the same day as the board meeting. And the board meeting was scheduled and adopted by the board on that schedule because this year, the Thanksgiving holiday is in the last week of November. So what we have done historically is to give staff time to ensure that everything is buttoned up and ready for the agenda. We pushed that meeting after a week outage back into the second Wednesday of the month, and it landed on December 11th. So it would be to the board's purview if they wanted to take that one meeting that they could change a year and push it to that Tuesday, December 10th, so that the board can attend the workshop on the 11th. Otherwise, some of you won't be able to go to the workshop, or we won't have a quorum.
I also, I was gonna say the 10th ain't great either, if it's a long meeting.
That's a
Because
Tuesday.
then we're all driving up and getting up there Tuesday night at dark 30.
Can it be the following week?
Well, you might also consider as a board, it's also to your purview if you want to change that meeting to change the start time. You could start the informal much earlier in the morning, executive, and get into the regular sooner than 2 p.m.
Support your recommendations.
I think we should consider our schedules and maybe people can sleep on it and bring back some ideas tomorrow.
I agree.
There are a lot of moving parts and there are a lot of moving parts in making that decision to change.
Especially in December. Okay, do I need a motion to adjourn? It's not a formal meeting.
a workshop.
This is a retreat. Okay, tomorrow morning we start at 8 o'clock.
Are we actually gonna eat the breakfast that's provided this time?
Well, actually, the agenda says 8:30,
Hang on.
but we would have time to cover some of the items that we missed today if we started earlier.
Okay, 8 o'clock. All right.
I was gonna say 8:15.
And by the way, thank everyone for a very long day.
Yeah.
Yeah.